Okay, I'm ready when you are.
Sorry about that. Okay, I think we are ready to proceed when you are, Chairperson Gretton.
Great. I call to order this regular meeting of the Hermosa Beach Public Works Commission on Wednesday, July 21st, 2021. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'll go ahead and lead us on that. Please rise and hand over heart if you are able. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And that will bring us to item 3, which is roll call. Andrew, please.
Yes. Commissioner Breton,
Present.
Commissioner Hayes,
Here.
Commissioner John Coley,
Present.
Commissioner Dan Babin,
Yes.
Chairperson Gretton.
Here.
All are present.
I'll also just go ahead and highlight some of the other people joining us for this meeting. We have our Deputy City Manager, Angela Crespi, who is currently also in the role as the Interim Director of Public Works. We also have Lucho Rodriguez, who's the Deputy City Engineer. Engineer Andrew Wynn, who's assisting us in the facilitation of the meeting, and Kathy Shin from the City Attorney's Office. And the presenters will be introduced as they come up. So now item 4 is approval of the action minutes of our prior meeting, which was on May 19th of 2021. And I'll open it up for any comments or proposed.
Before we begin, sorry, Chairperson Gretton, I believe we want to just make an announcement.
Thank you.
Yes. Oh yeah. Due to our technical issues we're having here at City Hall, currently this meeting is not being broadcast over cable or YouTube live streaming as most of our meetings usually are. So for anyone to watch this meeting, you will need to join via Zoom. The link is posted on the city website. Both you can join directly via Zoom or also call in as well with the number provided on the city website and on the agenda as well.
And for what it's worth, any of you who are watching on Zoom, and if you can get the word out in any way, it'd be much appreciated. Thank you. And thank you for making that clear, Andrew. So now we're back to item 4, approval of the minutes of May 19th. And do any of my fellow commissioners have any comments or proposed changes to the draft minutes that are before us? And I'm seeing none. I have one I'd like to bring up. So this would be on item 7A on page 2 regarding the enhanced watershed management plan. There's something that I don't understand that perhaps can be clarified through an amendment to these draft minutes. The last sentence says there are no changes to the plan except alternate suggested projects which are proposed, parenthesis 2, dry wells on PCH between Hondo and Aviation. So I don't know what that parenthesis 2 means. There are certainly more than 2 wells proposed. So I'm looking for maybe some help, since I'm not sure I understand the intent of this. Or we could just delete the 2. And
Yeah,
I would also, if Douglas, since Douglas Cross is here, I would invite him if he has any suggestions.
Yeah, I'm not sure the two, and I think deleting it would be fine.
Okay. Okay.
Kathy had her hand up, David.
Oh. Who's got a hand up?
No, I was just gonna make a motion, but
Oh, okay. So hearing no other proposed changes, do I have a motion?
I move
Commissioner Dunbabin.
to approve the minutes of May 19th, 2021
With,
As corrected.
with your comments deleting the paragraph at 2
with the removal of that parenthesis 2 on the item as discussed.
on item 7A.
Second, please.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Hayes. Can we get a roll call, Andrew?
yes. Commissioner Breton, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Hayes, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner John Coley, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Dunbabin, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Chairperson Griffin, how do you vote?
Aye.
Motion passes, minutes are approved with the corrected as requested.
Great. I'll just make one logistical comment before we proceed. Since we have a pretty full house here and I'm looking at a lot of faces on my screen, if you want to also perhaps put your hand up when you want to comment, that might make it easier for me to pick you, the 4 fellow commissioners or anyone else out of the crowd.
We
Thank you.
could also use the raising hand feature at the bottom of our screen. That way you don't have to hold your hand up for very long.
Okay, I'll see if I can train myself if anyone uses
I know
it.
it's hard.
Okay, so moving on to item 5, public comment on non-agenda items. Anyone wishing to address the commission on items pertaining to public works that are not listed on the agenda and pertaining to public works may do so at this time. Comments from the public are limited to 3 minutes per speaker. And note that the commission generally does not act on non-agendized items. And I'll also go ahead and mention here that we have some presentations coming up, and I expect to invite some additional public comment after those, all of those presentations are complete. So do we have anyone lined up for public comment, Andrew?
We do not have anyone lined up for a non-agenda item. I do see a phone caller here who has joined. For someone who is calling in via phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand. If you would like to make a public comment on a non-agenda item, feel free to press *9 so we will be able to see that raised hand on Zoom. For anyone else who is joined via Zoom directly through your phone or computer, you can click the raise hand button on the bottom of the screen, as Commissioner John Coley mentioned. So if anyone would like to make a public comment, feel free to click the raise hand button. If you are on the phone, you may press *9 and we will see that hand be raised on Zoom and we can call on you. Again, anyone joined via Zoom can click the raise hand and we will see that. Or if you are joining via phone, you can press *9. And let's see here. And it does not seem like we have any person wishing to speak during this public comment on a non-agenda item currently.
Okay. So public comment going once, twice. Still no public comment, Andrew?
Yeah, no hands raised for public comments.
Okay, with that, I will close the general comment, public comment item. Which brings us to item 6, which is correspondence. Andrew, are there any written correspondences?
We did not receive any written correspondence for a non-agenda item.
Correct, of a non-agenda item. Thank you. Which brings us to item 7, presentations, and we have.
Well, actually, didn't we get something that wasn't on from Tony in our email, right? Or am I wrong about that? Was that for something else? I thought we got something from,
Yeah, we did. I think that was just a I do not think it was for the commission. I think it was a issue that he wanted to bring up to the public works department to
Oh,
take a
okay.
look at. Yeah.
I was confused by that.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving right along, back to correspondence. Andrew, do we have any, I don't believe we have any written,
David,
not on the agenda, just
Yeah.
to reiterate.
Correct.
Okay, so I believe with that, all we need to do is proceed to the next item, which is the presentations. And so the first of the four presentations, item A, is an introduction of Serena Matute, and rather than mispronounce the name, maybe I should have just handed it off to Director Crespi. Welcome, Angela.
Thank you so much, Chairperson Grayson. It's with great pleasure that we formally welcome Serenia Matute as our interim senior management analyst who started last week. Serenia is going to be supporting the city manager's office and the executive team in special projects specifically related to transportation and mobility, logo and branding, media, social and digital communications for the city. Prior to joining the city of Hermosa Beach, Serenia was a transportation planner with 8 years of coordination and administrative analyst experience working in the areas of transit, economic recovery, public information, and community engagement at the city of Santa Monica. She also filled in as Santa Monica's citywide public information officer. Serenia holds a master's degree in urban planning from UCLA and a Bachelor of Arts in Economics and Education from Smith College. She was born and raised in Los Angeles and lives in Santa Monica. She's excited to join our team and get ready to meet the community. You will likely see Serenia working on transportation and mobility projects in the future and working closely with the Public Works team. Serenia, would you like to say a few words?
Just briefly wanted to introduce myself. Hi, I'm really looking forward to getting to know all of you pretty well. I really am excited to be here, and that's about it.
Well, welcome aboard, Serenia. We look forward to interfacing you on transportation and perhaps other matters. You know, we do get involved with that area time to time in our commission, and as you know, and very good to see you. And I see nods of agreement from my fellow commissioners. So
Welcome.
let's move on to item 7B, which is the downtown lane reconfiguration update. We have Douglas Kraus, our environmental programs manager, for that one. And welcome, Doug.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. This update, just to give you the latest on this, at the June 22nd council meeting, council approved the extension of outdoor dining and the lane reconfiguration through the end of the year, so December 31st. And so that includes all the outdoor dining, not only the on-street decks, but the private property ones and the Pure Plaza dining areas, as well as the lane reconfigurations on Pure Avenue and Hermosa Avenue. It's extended. There's approved as well, and that item was a reapplication process. So almost all the public dining areas have to reapply through our community development department. In the reapplication, there's no additional fee, but there are some new requirements. And those include renewed permissions from adjacent businesses in the cases where the decks, are encroach into the frontage of other businesses. The decks are now required to submit a $5,000 deposit, which is there in the case that Public Works has to, or someone has to come along and remove a deck for an emergency situation, or if for some reason a deck became abandoned. What else? Those are the two big ones. And so we're currently, that was communicated to all the operators in the last week, and so we are taking in reapplications now and hoping we get a bunch more very soon. We actually have a couple new decks coming along, brand new decks that are in the application process. And then also from that council meeting, council directed staff to bring back a report towards the end of the summer to discuss potential additional fees, whether it's encroachment fees, parking revenue loss fees, things along those lines. And then, of course, staff is working on what the future of it all might look like, which would be something we'd bring back to council towards the end of the year. So that's the update, just to let you all know. It's being continued. We're right now doing the reapplications, and otherwise it will visually not look much different moving forward.
Thank you. Do any of my fellow commissioners have any questions or comments for Doug? And I see a raised hand in Commissioner John Coley's window.
Thank you, Chairperson Grayson. Actually, Commissioner Hayes put his hand up first. Would you like to go ahead, Scott?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, my question for you, Doug, and thank you, Doug, for giving us an update on that. It's been such a wonderful addition to the community and really enjoyed by most of the community. When you said you're going to be providing a report back to the council at the end of this summer?
Right. Specifically about potential fees, about charging fees. Yeah.
So as far as when we get to the end of the year, will this be reviewed again by the council for another possible extension?
Yes.
And where does that, okay, go ahead.
No, that's all I have to say. Yes, we were going to bring something back, obviously before the end of the year, to discuss the future and some of the options and possibilities. Yeah.
And where does that put us with parking in terms of not revenue loss, but having enough spaces to comply with the Coastal Commission's criteria? I know that. Go ahead.
Yeah, we had a discussion with Coastal Commission, and it was discussed kind of informally. I think it's going to be an ongoing conversation with them, because as you're probably aware, almost every city, coastal or not, is doing similar programs. So I think it's something that they're looking at on a broader scale, and we're keeping in touch with them and with neighboring agencies to see where that goes. So that's about all I have to say on that right now. Yeah.
So they're being flexible at the moment.
Yes. Yeah. I'll leave it. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Is that all you have, Commissioner John Coley?
That's all I can remember that I was thinking.
Okay, and I see you have lowered your virtual. I see you have lowered your virtual raised hand.
Yeah.
And I'll now call on Commissioner Hayes.
Thank you. My question is much along the same lines. My question is, how long can we go with the current lane configuration and dining decks before we need to get some type of formal approval? My understanding, this is all kind of temporary, and at some point it needs to go through the proper channels. Do we know how much time we have on that?
I do not. And I don't know if, I know I've working with people from Kathy's office. I don't want to put you on the spot, Kathy, but I think that's, there's a legal issue to that and some other things that need to be explored. So I don't have an answer.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, I'll just go ahead and mention that my areas of interest, particularly from a more public works point of view, are the emergency vehicle access assurance, the degree to which there may be overflow traffic into other parts of the city, and then of course safety in general. Just to put it out there for the record, some of the things I'll be interested in. I am aware that some of these things are part of a comprehensive review of the performance of the program in its pilot form, if you will.
Yeah, at that June 22nd meeting, the council meeting, police and fire, well, police was there, fire weighed in, was in the staff report. So we're certainly in talks with them constantly to identify the issues. You know, it certainly slows things down here and there, but overall it seems to be working, but it's something we're closely monitoring. And then, yeah, I mean, that, and I guess that's about that. That's the update on that.
Okay. All right. I think that covers that sufficiently well. I think we're ready we'll move on to item 7C, another presentation, Prospect Avenue Traffic Safety Demonstration Project Update. And Doug's going to handle this one as well.
Right. Well, thanks again. So I'm sure you've all heard or experienced the Safer Prospect project. And so just for a little background, this was a grant that the city was successful in securing quite a while back. This project was delayed a bit by the pandemic. And the purpose of it was to install and implement some temporary traffic calming devices and measures along Prospect in response to years of public comment, but also there was a concerted public outreach campaign before the installation to see what the issues were, where they were, and within the scope and budget of that grant, we were able to implement some of these, and I'm sure you've seen them. You're at 14th and 15th Street and 9th and 10th Street. So they were installed finally right before Memorial Day weekend, so late May, right? And they've been in place ever since. There's a survey which we're encouraging everyone, whether you live here or you're just passing through, to take, because really this is all about getting public feedback on, do you like it? Do you not? Does it achieve some of the goals or not, right? We don't expect it to be perfect. That's why it's temporary. It's a demonstration, but that's the goal. And so the survey, anybody can find at asaferprospect.com. There's a link on the project page on the city's website. There's that microsite that I mentioned. If you're out there walking, there's QR codes on the sidewalk that you can scan and tap into that. So we want feedback, and we've got a lot in this amount of time. We just received the draft final report from the consultants that helped design this and implement it. So it's something we're reviewing, but the project, as I said, is still in place and will continue approximately through the end of summer, although as we monitor it, things might come and go. You may have noticed there was a traffic circle. Was a traffic circle at 10th Street. It was there. We removed it to redesign it and adjust it a bit. We put it back a few weeks after that. It got damaged 2 times within a few days. So we've removed that again to reassess that. We have adjusted some of the other features, in response to the public and our observations. So we've been working closely with the consultant, PD, Public Works, to just get a sense of how it's working and how it's not working. And so as of right now, it's continuing. We did traffic counts before, shortly after installation, and we will be doing them again soon, before the end of summer, before it's all gone, to help inform that. And again, the purpose of this altogether is to see what works, what doesn't, and this will inform then future larger capital improvements along Prospect that come along, and again with that goal of improving safety, and multimodal transportation for bikes, cars, and pedestrians along Prospect. So that's the update. Again, it's in place. If you haven't seen it, please go see it, take the survey, but that is the latest.
Thank you. Any commissioner comments or questions? Commissioner Dunbavin?
You know what? I don't have a hand at the bottom. But I'll just raise my hand. I don't know. Does everyone have a hand at the bottom?
I had to move my cursor down to the bottom to get it to show
Yeah.
up.
Well, I know that.
You go to participant, and when your name comes up at the bottom, it says invite, mute me, raise hand. So you go through the participant app.
I will do that after I ask my question. Actually, my question was about the traffic circle. I went down there and it appeared everyone was driving over the traffic circle. And my question was, if the city did actually decide to put a traffic circle in there, what would it look like? Would it be?
I don't know. You know, I mean, I'm not a traffic engineer. Obviously, we would take the lessons learned from this one to design one potentially. But I don't foresee that in the near future, but you know, we had a lot of fans of it, but it had its issues, right? So we'll see, but yeah, I don't know. I couldn't answer that.
I was just going to say that I went down there and just observed what was happening, and everyone I saw drove over it. So
Well, currently, I mean, it's only the painted circle on the ground, and yeah, you should drive over it at this point. But the signs and the delineators are gone for now.
And the only other question I had was that it would be south of 9th Street, that there's it has nothing to do with this, but it is close to it, is that there's actually a pedestrian crosswalk that goes from one driveway to another driveway. So, you know, I'd like to see something like that be corrected at some point in time. And
right. Yeah, we are aware of that, and I believe there's a CIP to address those. Yeah, thank you.
okay, I'm going to work on my hand. So that was it. Thank you, Doug.
Thank you.
Problem.
Anyone
Thank
else? Anyone else? I just want to thank you for the update, Doug. And yes, stress that this is a demonstration, an experiment of sorts. And I think that gathering the feedback is an important thing for us to stress. I would want to ask you, is the survey the preferred method by which you would like to receive that feedback?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, but you know, obviously you and anybody out there, if you have a little more nuanced or lengthy response, you know, shoot me an email, and I've got plenty. But the survey is ideal because it can be compiled and compared all in one place, and that's what we've been doing with that information. So,
and I'll go ahead and admit that informally, there's a lot of comments on social media out there. There's a lot of public expertise, and some of the tone of the comments leaves a little bit to be desired, but I'll leave it at that. But the important thing, I think, is that let's really take the feedback seriously and try to be accountable for as much of it as we can. And part of that leads me to my last question. You mentioned there's a draft report. And so would that report be one of the key places where the analysis of the feedback is accounted for?
yes, yeah, it definitely kind of does a high level summary of the general theme of the comments. And we have every response in a separate larger spreadsheet as well, which of course we will archive for all future. And there's more coming, right? So yeah, it's a work in progress, but definitely that's what this was for.
Right. I mean, given the experimental nature, you want to capture the results of the experiment. So makes sense. All right. Thank you for that. Anyone else? One last chance? And seeing none, I'll close this item and bring us to our last presentation, item 7D, which is the fiscal year 21-22 budget update. And Interim Director Crespi once again.
Thank you again, Chairperson Grayson. So on July 13, 2021, the City Council approved the FY 21-22 budget, including the capital improvement program. So I wanted to just provide you with a quick update on that. I know at your May 19, 2021 meeting that the Public Works Director provided a capital improvement program study session. So we'll not revisit that information this evening. The only changes that I want to note to the CIP budget from the time of the CIP study session to the adoption on the 13th was an increase in the budget for the park restrooms project, which was awarded by City Council at their last meeting. The addition of a new CIP, which was CIP 108 for parking app signage, and a few reconciliation items, we would call them, where we added a few projects back to the list because they are in final closeout of the project and still kind of in progress in that regard. So in order for our list to match the general ledger list, we're adding those back in as we close out the final finances of the projects. What I would like to update the commission on this evening, in addition, is a few items on the city's operating budget that pertain to the capital improvement program implementation. First, we're very thankful for the city manager's creative use and the council support to exchange Prop A funds with the city of West Hollywood. This exchange will allow us to utilize these funds for a new assistant engineer position, which will support the CIP program. We were also approved funding for a second intern position in public works engineering, which will provide support to permitting and also to CIP projects. Also relative to the capital improvement program for this group, the city is expecting to receive a total of $4.6 million in the American Rescue Plan Act funds. A total of $2.3 million of those funds were used in the 21-22 budget, which freed up some general fund revenue and allowed the transfer of $1.77 million in prior year unspent funds to the capital improvement fund. This transfer provides $886,000 for future capital improvement projects, increases capital facility reserve by $316,000, and establishes a reserve of $569,000 for the remaining fire facility payments to the county for the newly renovated fire station. So with that, just thank you for allowing me to share those quick updates, especially the personnel related enhancements. We're very excited to get those positions filled as soon as possible so that we can support the CIP program. Chairman Grayson and I also discussed with our city manager the other day a plan to provide additional presentation to this commission next year in between the preliminary budget and the budget adoption. This year's launch of the budget and the OpenGov software placed a little crunch on time for staff, as with any implementation of software, we had a few bugs to work out, but we're looking forward to a smoother process next year. So with that, that concludes my update and report.
Thank you, Director. Any comments or questions? And I'm seeing none. Appreciate that update, especially with the emphasis on some of the staffing related aspects of that. As we know, that's an important aspect related to our ability to make progress in general and on our CIP program. Okay, so that brings that item to a close. And I will go ahead and offer one more opportunity for public comment. Andrew, could you see if I'll open it up for public comment?
Yes, if anyone wishes to make a public comment in regards to the presentations, the 4 presentation items that were presented, feel free to hit the raise hand button if you are on Zoom. If you are listening via phone, as mentioned, you can press *9 to raise your hand and we will see that as well. So again, if anyone would like to make a public comment on one of the 4 presentation items that were just discussed, feel free to click the raise hand button. And if you are on the phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand. And currently, I do not see anyone with their hands raised.
I'll just pause a few more seconds. Thank you for facilitating this, Andrew. And hearing none, I will close that public comment as well. And we can move along to item 8, items for consideration. And we have one item, 8A, which is a request to remove and replace trees from the public right-of-way at 24th Street, Hillcrest Drive, and 21st Street. And I believe we'll have a, well, go ahead, I'll hand this off to staff.
Sure.
Welcome, Romani.
Good evening, Chairperson and Commissioners. So today I have just one item for you, request to remove 9 trees. I prepared slideshows, so let's see if I can share screen. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So after we opened project CIP 186 and 190 for street improvements, after the bid opening, we found out that we actually the results came out less than what we expected, and we have extra money. So we decided to add more streets to the project. So we added 24th Street and Hillcrest. And when we usually do a project, when we do any street improvement, we usually check the sidewalk. If there is any trip hazard that we need to fix, if the sidewalk is broken and we need to fix for any reason. So we noticed that we have 9 trees. Those 9 trees are causing curb issues, and sidewalk is lifting the sidewalk. That's why we requested actually to remove those trees. We also noticed that the minimum clear width for single wheelchair is not, we are not maintaining this as well. We checked the widths of each tree, and we found that all of them are bigger than 12-inch diameter. As usual, we also contacted the arborist who gave us a report about those trees, and he mentioned in his report that all of the trees are causing issues to the sidewalk and curb and gutter. We sent a notice to the resident about 300 feet around. So the issue here is that we have that during construction of the project, we usually, to fix the sidewalk itself, the trip hazard, we need to cut the roots of the trees. So if we actually look at this as an example, so to fix the sidewalk itself and see how it's causing damage, we need to cut the roots of the trees during construction. And what we usually do, we bring an arborist on site who takes a look at the tree after we cut the roots and see if the tree is stable or not. If the arborist notices that the tree is not stable, then we have to remove it right away. However, the problem here that if the arborist decided that we need to remove the tree right away, we are not going to have enough time to go back to the commission asking them. And we have 9 trees that all of them almost looking the same way. So let's go back to here. So we, in return, are asking for the replacement of those trees, and we're gonna plant 18 trees instead of them. We're gonna put 3 different kinds: New Zealand Christmas tree, red iron bark, and peppermint. That's it. And we also hired Hardy and Harbor to remove those trees. And last thing, those are just pictures of the trees that we are looking forward to plant. And let me end Screen sharing. And that's it for me. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Armani. Thank you for the presentation and for the thorough staff report. Any questions from fellow commissioners, including any ex parte disclosures? Commissioner Britton.
Yes, I did drive by and look at the trees. I'm reading the arborist report and it talks about the different health of the trees, but it doesn't say if the roots are removed, if the tree will die. So the question is, can you remove the roots, take care of the sidewalk appropriate and leave the tree, or is removing the roots killing the tree? That is unclear to me.
So this is something that they usually determine on site after we cut the roots, because the contractor, once they go do the work, they have to remove the lifted sidewalk, and then they see how much roots they have to remove after that. So they have to remove the sidewalk first, take a look at the roots, and then start cutting them. After that, the arborist will come in and take a look at the condition. So we try always to remove the minimum as possible. However, even once we remove the minimum, sometimes they say, no, you have to remove it, it's not stable. So my point, the arborist cannot determine right now until we do the work.
Okay, another question. The one picture shows that there is some kind of meter next to the tree. Is there any damage to sewers or underground areas from the roots at this time that we have identified? Other than the roots on top breaking up the sidewalk, is there any underground damage?
No, but obviously, as you can see from the picture, it's something that's gonna, over time, it's gonna happen.
Commissioner Britton, we received one comment from a resident letting us know that they had to replace their sewer in the past, and I want to say maybe the gas line due to the damage to the root from the tree. That tree was removed around 2015 or so when that occurred. So depends on the proximity to their sewer and other utilities. But at this time, we don't know of any additional damage.
Thank
I
you,
guess
Lucho.
clarity too is our decision is if number one, if we're going to keep the trees or not. Number two, if we're going to keep the trees, but removing the roots, then the tree dies, that we have to at this point also agree to remove the tree if the tree is going to die. Is that my understanding of our decision today?
Yes.
I see nodding heads, yes. Anything else, Janice? Commissioner John Coley? Mute?
I know I'm muted. Most of them are in planters. Most of these trees are in planters, and most of them have clearly outgrown their planters, except the one at the end of the one at 21st and Prospects. I'm looking at this, which doesn't have addresses. So I don't know which address that one is on 21st, but with the exception of that one, the rest are in planters. So why aren't we considering putting smaller trees into those planters that don't have that same type of invasive root system?
That's actually another option. We can remove all the existing trees and plant different kind of trees that are not going to cause the same issue in the future.
Why isn't that being put before us versus getting rid of them and planting them elsewhere? What was the thought? I'm trying to understand that. I mean, was there a reason why? Because if there's not, then that is important to know.
There was a reason, but I mean, the main reason was that we wanted to have the full width of the sidewalk for like ADA access, as I mentioned in my staff report. If we remove all the trees and have all concrete, that would be better. But if it's not a requirement, then we can just plant other trees. And
Okay, in the ones with planters,
yes,
right? What about the last one on 21st and Prospect? It doesn't look like that one's in a planter.
Oh yeah, but still, even if it's not a planter, but the remaining widths of the sidewalk still not big enough for ADA.
Yeah, I guess what I'm trying to get at is 8 of them have planters. One of them does not. So it makes sense I'm just trying to understand like all the thought processes that were involved here, and some of the requirements. So it sounds like from what you're telling me that an option is to we could replace the trees with trees that are on the city's approved tree list in the ones that already have planters.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, thank you.
And if I may add, Commissioner Giancoli, and Romani touched on it a bit. It has to do with accessibility at the same time a bit. Right now, there's no requirement to keep the accessibility width of the streets. Of the sidewalk, because it does meet ADA based on the pinch points requirements and such, which are part of the future document that the city will have ready, which is a transition plan. The transition plan, while it will touch on that, and personally, I wonder if later on we're going to have to remove these new trees that we may be installing.
But right now they meet the pinch points, right? I mean,
right now they don't meet it because the pinch point is a 32-inch width. Right now we have 24-inch width. However,
on all of them, or
on all of them, including the one on 21st Street at Prospect. Is that correct, Romani?
Yes.
Yeah. So all of them.
they're all the same width.
Yes.
All 9 are the same width.
Yes, we have a 48-inch sidewalk with half of it taken by a tree well.
Lucho, I'd like to exercise some privilege as chair and ask you, what is the width of the sidewalk and what are the ADA requirements, making a distinction between the nominal ADA width and the pinch point width?
The current sidewalks are 48-inch wide, 4 feet. The requirement, if the sidewalk was currently built brand new, it will be 36 inches, 3 feet, and with a pinch point down to 32 inches, depending on which book we're using, 32 inches down to 30 inches in some locations. But
are you saying we're not going to build the sidewalk back to 48 inches all the way?
No, at this point, we will, if the trees are removed, we would build the sidewalk down to 4 feet back to match the rest of the street. Right. Now, an important point here, Chairperson and Commissioners, is that we would say, why don't we just make a sidewalk of 3 feet and put a 1 foot planting for a tree? The requirements under our tree planting requirements for the city and under the approved tree list is what minimum size does a tree need on the planter. There's nothing that is less than 24 inches, and those are very particular trees. Everything requires a parkway of 3 feet or beyond. Even though we studied the possibility of replanting something at that location, we considered it because it's the utmost important vision, I want to say, that we have at the city, and I know commissioners feel the same with the vision that we're trying to implement here is plant as many trees as we can, protect the trees, because this is not the first time that we are at commission trying to requesting a tree removal, right? So
Not by a long shot.
yeah, so we want as many trees as possible and all that. With that in mind, we looked at the reality of the street. It is right now too small of a planted area for a tree at 24 inches. Granted that we could plant other trees, right? But it's the absolute minimum planting area. Now, the other portion of this is that we are left with 24-inch sidewalk adjacent to it. Not that it is a reason here for removing or keeping the tree, but we do have that in mind, that eventually we are going to start implementing doing a 48-inch sidewalk throughout the city, and here we have 24 inches now. At some point, we're going to have to change it in the future. The idea of coming to commission at this point is we have a contractor in the area. We are going to pave the street no matter what, with trees or without trees, because the resurfacing project, the paving project that we have is in the area. And because we had the opportunity to extend the project, we selected areas that are continuation of our paving project right across Prospect, but we are already touching 21st Street. So it was only reasonable to continue 21st Street and do it all at once. And because each resurfacing project that we do at our agency or at any other agency, it is required to look into upgrading the access ramps at the corners, and that's by law. And at the same time, we are proactive and look at fixing the sidewalks. What areas do we have that is a hazard, tripping hazard, and also as part of the resurfacing, we also look at the curb and gutter, and of course we replace curb and gutters. Those are other tripping hazards, or they don't allow the flow of water, right, to flow correctly in some locations. We look at all these comprehensively, and then make the best possible judgment for maintaining the trees, for doing the repairs possible. It was determined, as you know, these trees are not, they are very invasive. It's only obvious by the pictures. So chances of keeping the trees, I see, not being an arborist, I see it very hard to keep them, unfortunately. However, we could try trimming the roots and see how they behave in the future. But we have all these other items that I mentioned that affect our decisions.
Thank you, Lucho. Anything more, Commissioner Giancoli?
No.
Commissioner Hayes?
Commissioner Dunbabin was before me.
Go ahead, Kathy, if you prefer. You may be muted, Commissioner Dunbabin.
No, I'm not muted,
Okay.
but I did have a couple of questions. Thank you, Scott. First of all, is there any way that we could expand the sidewalk so that it goes around the tree? Much like you would do, say, if you had a utility pole there and you, the half circle that would go around the utility pole would come out from the utility pole 36 inches. I don't know if I've made myself clear or not. In other words, you walk up to the tree and then you walk around the tree and instead of 24 inches, it would be expanded to 36 inches. I don't know if there's any, if we could even do that.
This was the first thing came to my mind when I inspected those trees. And I talked to Lucha about it, that instead of removing those trees, let's expand the sidewalk. But we don't have the right of way to do it. So we shared already the right of way and we couldn't do it.
And I thought that might have been the problem. And I did visit the site, and this time I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Thanks.
Now, Commissioner Hayes.
Thank you. A few questions. Number one, so who is currently responsible for the maintenance of these trees?
It's the resident. Each resident is responsible of maintaining the tree, but not the sidewalk.
Okay, so why is the city taking responsibility for the tree removal?
Because first of all, it was not a request from a resident. It's a city project that we're doing. And the problem here is that we need to fix the sidewalk. So we have to do it. It's a trip hazard and we need to fix it. At this point, it's a city project. It's the city doing the work and trying to fix the sidewalk. It's not a resident request. That's why we cannot go ask them you have to pay for it.
But if a resident requests to remove a tree because it's causing a trip hazard, the commission has in the past sometimes said no. And so I don't understand the difference here as to why, if the resident is responsible for the tree here, why they're not responsible for the removal, where everywhere else in the city, that's the case.
Let me frame it in a different way. So for example, let's say, we're gonna go on site and let's say you approved fixing the sidewalk. Okay, we need to fix trim. We have to trim the tree because it's our work. We're not gonna, and once we trim the tree, let's say the tree is not stable and we have to remove it. We cannot go at this point and ask the resident, hey, we cut the roots of the tree, you have to pay for it to remove it.
Right, but let's say that due to a resident's poor maintenance of a tree, that the tree becomes a nuisance and needs to be removed.
At this point, I'm not an arborist to know if the poor maintenance made the tree roots to left the sidewalk. I'm not sure.
I'm not saying that. It just seems to me that the responsibility, if the resident, and I'll tell you, I don't think the resident should be responsible for the trees, but that's neither here nor there. That's what the rule is. And if the residents are responsible for the trees, they should be responsible for the trees, whether they decide, the resident decides that the trees need to be removed, or the city decides that they need to be removed. I mean, if we were just tearing it down for no reason, the tree was a perfectly healthy tree, and the city just decided it didn't like trees, then I get it. But this is, these trees were a nuisance, and anyway, so that's my issue here. I do have a couple of other questions. I was out there this afternoon, and I didn't check every location of sidewalk, but most were 54 inches. I checked a few places, and they were definitely 54 inches. So if you need 32 inches for the pinch point, that would leave 22, which is very close to the 24 that you said you need for a tree well. Is there any way that we could look into having a 22-inch opening in the sidewalk so we could have the 32-inch clear to get around?
I'm sorry, I didn't get the question. So the current right now, it's the minimum we can go is 32, or in some conditions 30 inches. But
okay, so what I'm saying is that the many of the sidewalks in this area are 54 inches currently. I didn't check every single one, but I checked a few, and they were and some at a minimum of some locations they're 54 inches. Are we able to select a tree that will, and if you, so we can go down to 30, even better, then we can do a 24-inch opening for the tree and 30 inches to pass by.
Got it. So
and I just want to clarify with Commissioner Hayes, with regards to when you say 54 inches for the sidewalk, did you also include the 6 inches of curb face?
I did not.
Okay.
I did.
Okay. So if I got you,
There's actually 60 inches in most places.
But you can't count the curb, if I understand correctly.
So if I got your question right, you mean that if we plant new trees, can we, and instead of removing all the trees, we just replace them we just replace them with smaller trees and keep the 30 inches and have a 30 inches?
I think we have the ability to do that in at least some of the locations.
See, let me phrase the options we have. Okay, so we have 3 options. Okay, option 1, to remove all trees, just add concrete, and if we do that, as Lucho said, then we don't have any ADA issues in the future. That's option 1. Option 2 is to remove all the trees and plant, as you said, we can start plant new trees and widen the sidewalk, is not the sidewalk, remove a small, like the box for the tree, shorten that to have at least the 32 inches or the 30 inches. That's option 2. Option 3 is to leave the trees as they are right now and give us, I don't know if this is how it's gonna work, but if once we cut the roots, the arborist, if he sees the tree is not stable, we need to remove it, then we remove it. If he said, no, it's stable, it's fine, then we can keep it. So we have 3 options.
Okay. I'll leave my comments for later. I think you answered the curbs around these trees are also going to be replaced as part of the project, as part of the street resurfacing project.
Yes.
And then I think I heard that these streets were selected because they were close by to streets that were part of the project. How do these streets, how does the condition of these streets compare to other streets in the city? Are there other streets that are in worse shape than these streets?
There are, but what we do usually when we do like those kind of projects, first of all, we look into the area. So we need to select streets that closer to what, where we're gonna do, as Lucho said, we're gonna extend streets. So we look where we're gonna do the work and look where is the nearest location, because it's cheaper for the contractor to do it and cheaper for us as a city. Second, when we look to the BCI number for the street, if it's very low, then that means that the street gonna cost the city so much money to fix. So we look into the budget, to the PCI number, the index of the street, and how much money we have. And according to that, we look at how we utilize the money we have to fix more streets.
Okay. Have the sewers been replaced on this street already?
For that street, I'm not sure, but the other streets, yes. Andrew maybe knows that because he's taking care of. So.
To the best of our research, there's no sewer needs on these streets.
So for the foreseeable future, we will not have to tear it up to install a new sewer line, water line, storm drain line, whatever.
That's correct. As a minimum, the sewer lines, because that's our utility. The water company may decide to have a project in a few years and do it, and it's their and they have the right to do it. However, we protect our streets, and if they come in to do a project, they will have to pave accordingly, not just the trench, but bigger, as a minimum for a couple of years. But when we talk to them, they have no project, but you never know about emergencies and things like that.
Right. My apologies. I lost the email that I was reading with my other questions on it. Here it is. Responsible. So the other issue or question that I have is there are streetlights almost dead in the middle of these sidewalks. So does it make sense to bend over backwards to make the sidewalk ADA compliant when, a couple yards down the road, or in some places right immediately adjacent to the tree, you've got a spot where a wheelchair can't get by?
See, we usually do it step by step. Street light is not part of this project to replace, but let's say, okay, we'd fix ADA for the sidewalk at this project. Maybe in a few years from right now, we do another project to fix the street light. So we usually do it step by step to the point that we get to the requirement to have all the sidewalk to fit ADA requirement.
And furthermore, the requirements that are triggered by a resurfacing project is upgrading to new ADA standards, the curb ramps at the corners, the access ramps, only by law. The reason we are talking about trees is because there's damage caused by the trees to the sidewalk, to the curb and gutter and such. The street lights and traffic signs are not causing any damage. Therefore, those are not considered in our projects or on any resurfacing project. And eventually, someday there will be some requirement for the lights and things like that. Who knows in the future? Right now, there's no particular requirement, especially with resurfacing. And by the way, Commissioner Hayes, the pinch point that is called out on ADA standards is for things like the lights, because those were there ahead of the ADA standards. Correct. Yeah, they were there before, but there's other things that are a little easier to modify, right, than street lights or such. However, a street sign, it's a really good point you brought up, because a street sign is easy to move. As a pole for a sign for street sweeping, for example, something like that is easy. However, it's not triggered, as I said, by street resurfacing, but is to be considered, and depending on the locations, we do look at that, and at this place we will look at that. I don't recall the dimensions now or clearances. However, the 36 inches, because, by the way, the street signs, when they are mounted, is with that in mind. There's a particular distance from the curb face to install a traffic sign. Or
From what I could see, the street signs didn't seem to be a problem, but the street lights were definitely like almost smack in the middle.
Yeah.
One last thing, it's my understanding that at the next city council meeting, they are going to take up an ordinance that would put the responsibility of the sidewalks on the residents. And aside from my feelings on that particular idea, wouldn't it make sense for us to just wait and see if that ordinance passes?
So I might.
Thank you, Kathy.
Sure. So we don't know yet the full scope of that ordinance. It's not been made available yet. Whether in 2019, when the the Public Works Commission amended the tree ordinance, it did specify in let's see, in section, I think it's in the maintenance section of the 1236-040 A of the code, that property owners' maintenance obligations do not extend to repairing damaged sidewalks caused by where the damage is caused by street trees roots uplifting the sidewalk. And the purpose there was to balance the city's interest in encouraging the preservation of mature trees throughout the city, so that, you know, that residents are not concerned that they have to pull out trees out of potential liability concerns, and rather try to maintain them. So the city, as of now, in the tree ordinance, for sidewalk repairs that are specifically caused by tree roots uplifting the sidewalk, those are still covered by the city. How the new ordinance, I can't speak for certain as to the scope of the new ordinance, if it will change that policy, in which case the tree ordinance would also have to be amended. But outside of other trip and fall hazards caused by cracks in the sidewalk, for problems created specifically by parkway trees uplifting the sidewalk, those costs are still covered by the city. The property owner does take on the cost of removing and replacing the trees, but the sidewalk repair caused by a parkway tree is covered by the city.
But in this case, the property owner is not taking on the cost of removing and replacing the tree.
Right, and that's something that the Public Works Commission can consider, as to perhaps maybe the city should not do that or should do that. That's the decision before the commission today, which is whether, as a part of the city's planned street paving project, that these trees should all be removed, or as staff has indicated, perhaps the commission might defer that decision to a later time, thinking if it feels that removal at this time is not warranted. And the analysis, consideration there should be pursuant to the terms of the tree ordinance. As we know, the ordinance allows for removal in 3 circumstances: if the tree is dead, or creating a public nuisance, or a private nuisance to adjacent property. In this case, the only consideration is a public nuisance for the commission, as none of the trees are dead. And so 12-36-090 of the code, 090A, provides a clarification on what constitutes a public nuisance. Trees damaging the sidewalk pavement or trees impairing pedestrian use of the sidewalk are the principal criteria that would be considered here. Also concerns about public safety that might be in the record, the commission consider. And so those would be and even after considering that, if it finds that the sidewalks do need to be repaired for those reasons, there is still the consideration of whether removal is warranted to make those repairs. And one thing that Romani mentioned is that the arborist cannot determine at this time whether removal will be required to make those repairs, and can only make the determination after some of the repairs have been done, and then to confirm whether or not the tree is stable to remain there. And so one thing that the commission might consider is providing a conditional removal, approval for the removal of trees where removal is necessitated by the tree becoming unstable and a more serious public safety hazard after the necessary repairs for the sidewalk damage have been done. The ADA concern, I will note, the ADA issue at this time is very uncertain. The ADA does not require coming into compliance with those, with the current clearance criteria for older sidewalks. And these are, I think staff has determined that they were constructed before the ADA was adopted. And so the trigger for bringing them into compliance is if they are altered or new construction, and routine repairs do not qualify as alterations. So if the city, however, were to take on a different type, I guess a higher level, a fancier sidewalk improvement project, that might trigger an ADA requirement. But at this time, the city's ADA consultant couldn't say for certain that that's what we see here. Right now, we only have a repair that does not trigger the ADA obligations at this time.
Thank you, Attorney Shin. Anything else from Commissioner Hayes?
That's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Okay, well, you all asked a lot of good questions, and I appreciate Attorney Shin weighing in on the question of triggers, as opposed to whether that's a hard trigger versus just our consideration of the clearances as part of the overall set of conditions where we might have a nuisance. So that is helpful, and also for taking us back, also in a sense a history lesson when you talked about the responsibilities for the tree removal costs versus the sidewalk costs. And I do recall when sitting on this commission, when we as a team updated the code, my recollection is that we were viewing that as a compromise of sorts, not putting too much onus on the residents, with consideration for not wanting to discourage residents from taking some level of responsibility for the tree. So thank you for that update as well. To follow up on some of Commissioner Hayes's, first of all, I think I heard it, but I think I need staff to acknowledge that there are some locations where we have 54 inches to work with rather than 48. Do we know that?
I'm gonna need to confirm that. I'm gonna.
Okay. And then if there are such locations, when we took the 54 minus the 32 and that left us with 22, I believe we were comparing that with some 24-inch number. And I don't, at first I thought from hearing Lucho that maybe that was kind of a hard requirement, but then I'm also hearing that perhaps there's some flexibility in that not being such a hard requirement where we could entertain. And I'll just throw in quickly, regardless of whether there's flexibility, I would wonder what staff's opinion is about the true viability of really trying to find an appropriate tree to put there, just in your own judgment. So I'll invite either Romani or Lucho to comment on the 22 inches and the viability of a smaller tree.
Don't you want to take care of that?
Sure, I'll try. So the pinch point, if we're gonna go with that, even though it's not triggered as Attorney Sheen stated, ideally we need to maintain it. Now, what our first measurements indicated was a 48-inch sidewalk throughout. But we need to confirm it because Commissioner Haynes has a good point that some areas may be beyond that, not counting the 6-inch curb. So we have to confirm and maximize our tree well, if we will, if we are going into that direction. We maximize the width of the tree wells, keeping the appropriate pinch point in place, right? Whatever that dimension may end up being, depending on the few inches that the sidewalk could be wider at some points. And we could try finding those trees that on our approved tree list says that we need a 2-foot minimum planting parkway. We can try installing those trees and giving it a try. Absolutely, there certainly would be some sort of trees that will match there. The other point that crossed my mind, and I think it's important, is the pictures we show of the proposed trees. Those are mature trees, and is how they will look once mature. We are planting a 24-inch box tree, which needs a 24. It needs wider than the space we have in the tree well right now, because the box is itself, when we buy the tree, is already bigger. So we will have to install smaller trees, but these are still new trees. So even though we show mature trees so we can see how they look when mature, these are but a small tree that will be planted to start with, and maybe has years and years of growth before they are affected by the small width of the tree well.
Well, I guess my question is it likely that no matter what we try to do, we're going to wind up with the same situation after some number of years? Because we only have so much right away. It's like you got the property line to the curb, and it is what it is. We're constrained.
Yes.
something.
If you look at other trees throughout our city streets, they are planted on the parkway adjacent to the sidewalk.
Right.
These trees just happen to be planted directly on the sidewalk, reducing the width of the sidewalk. And I see your point, Chairperson, that we may be, certainly if we keep these trees, we're going to be repeating this scenario. No matter how good we repair the sidewalk, the current trees will damage it again. I don't know in how long of time, but we will be here again talking about this.
Oh, okay. Okay. So I'm going to go to another line of questioning then, if that's fine. A little bit more about the project itself. So we have awarded a contract, is that correct?
Yes.
So we're certainly committed to paving the streets here at this point, correct? And thank you for clarifying that this is driven by condition, not by a recent sewer or storm drain repair, and that was helpful. And then the ADA ramps at the corners, those are planned as part of this contract as well, correct?
That's true.
And those will occur no matter what. You know, I noticed that also in terms of flexibility on the ultimate scope of the contract as executed. And I know sometimes we allocate contingency for things like this. I assume that we do have flexibility, obviously, as to whether we make the repairs, you know, related to the tree removal or not, right? I mean, I guess that's obvious. There's, okay. So that's good.
I'm sorry, Chairperson Grayson, can you repeat the last point? You were saying that whether or not the sidewalk repairs were discretionary?
Yeah. I mean, I'm just confirming that yes, in essence, that they're discretionary within the framework of the paving contract. We're not committed under contract to perform those, but we have the flexibility to do so, correct?
But we have the need as a project of repairing the broken sidewalk. That has to happen no matter what. Once we are there and
Okay.
and we know there's a trip hazard, we have to repair it.
Right. So it gets to another level of detail as to what's involved then, basically, is what I'm hearing. Okay. Okay. So I'm hearing that there's efficiency here. And I also appreciate that it was able to come out through the questioning that this is a staff or a city initiated request, which interestingly enough, I don't know that I'd seen one of those before until we had the school project 2 months ago. So I appreciate that came out in the discussion. I'll also mention that I did go out and do a site walk, and I thought that the condition of the sidewalks and curbs in the area of the trees were pretty consistently poor, and in my judgment opinion, pretty poor compared to others I've seen at other locations. That was what I seemed to observe there. And then let's see, I think I just have one more. And I'll just say, do we have some general idea as to how the replacement trees might be distributed amongst the different locations that were identified at this point? Noting that we are planning to build new restrooms at Fort Lots of Fun and Seaview.
Yeah.
Or is that still pretty fluid at this point, how you would distribute the number?
And I would like to respond to that, Chairperson, because the first look we did to where do we install new trees was directly in the neighborhood. Do we have any additional right of way so we can replace these trees in the neighborhood, in the same street, down the way here and there on the most local park? And unfortunately, we did not find those locations. And then we went to where are they needed, and Romani, you can follow up with the locations, but I wanted to make sure you know that we looked at the immediate vicinity at the first and most important place to do so.
So we're gonna install actually 10 trees on the Greenbelt, 4 at Valley Park, 2 at Seaview Park, and 2 at Fort Loans of Fun.
Thank you. Let's see. And then again, not so much a question, but since it was the result of a question, I appreciate Attorney Shin bringing up the notion of a potentially some sort of a conditional action that might be taken if necessary. But I'll leave it at that for now. But appreciate who's ever questioned evoked that as part of the response. Okay, any other follow-up questions from anyone before public comment? Okay, so I think we're good then. Well, Andrew, I suppose why don't we go ahead and acknowledge that we did receive written correspondence.
Yes.
I believe we received 3 written correspondences. Is that correct?
Yes, we did receive 3 written correspondence that was distributed to the commission and also uploaded on the agenda, which is publicly available on the city website. Comments, I forget who off the top of my head who they were, but we did receive 3 comments from residents in the area.
One was from a Gwendolyn Johnson, generally, I believe against removal. One was from David Peterson as a resident, talking about part of it with trees on site versus off site. And I apologize, I forgot the name of the third, and they were generally in favor of the removal. And that was the person who I believe did mention the bad experiences that they had with some property damage there. And that also reminds me, Lucho, thank you for reminding us that I don't know if it was 2015, it may actually have been even 2016. It might have been one of my first tree removal requests, if not the first, because I knew I'd been out there before and walked that street. So yeah, and so thank you for reminding us that there is some history out there. Okay, so Andrew, I will now open public comment. Please facilitate.
Right. So if anyone would like to make a public comment, as a reminder, public comments are limited to 3 minutes. A timer will be on the screen. But if anyone would like to make a public comment, including the people who submitted a comment earlier to the commission, and you are on Zoom, feel free to click the raise hand button, and I should be able to see it. We should be able to see it, and we can call on you. Anyone who is calling in via phone, again, if you would like to make a public comment on this item, which is the request for tree removal, please press *9 and we can see your hand raised. So again, I do see some hand raised. So just quickly mention, if you're on Zoom, you can press the raise hand button on the, you can lower your mouse near the bottom of the screen to click on that button. And if you're on phone, it is a star 9. And I do see person calling via phone raise hand. And we also have a John Fiorita. Apology if I mispronounce your last name. So I believe John was the first one to raise his hand. I believe he was one of the comments submitted to the commission. So give me 1 second, John. Okay, John, I think you are able to unmute.
Yes.
Okay, whenever you're ready, John.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, this is John Fiorito. I wrote a letter in support of the tree removal, and I just wanted to clarify part of your discussion that the tree in front of our house sits on top of both our sewer line and our gas line, and not the one that was previously removed. So we have repaired it, the sidewalk previously, and we've also repaired our sewer. And when our gas line ruptured, the gas company came out for an emergency repair because there was gas leaking in the neighborhood. So since that repair, the roots have come back and the condition is repeating itself. So because of that, I want to support the removal of the tree, especially the one in the location in front of our house. And thank you for hearing me, and thanks for letting me participate.
Thank you, John.
Next, we do have a phone caller calling in from 310-367-5055. So give me 1 second here. Okay, caller, if you hit *6, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Hi, I am in support of the removal of the trees. However, I am concerned about replanting. I feel that if we remove all 9 trees from this section, I just feel that it's imperative for beautification, for shading, for every for everything to happen to make it look better, that we need to have some kind of trees planted. I understand that there is a specific, like 3 trees on the approved tree list, and that's great. I don't have a problem with that. I think, but I feel it's imperative that we have some kind of trees replaced. Removing all 9 and not replacing them with anything in this section of the city, I feel is very, very harsh. There's no need to plant, in my opinion, my humble opinion, I don't see that there's any need to plant 18 trees on the Greenbelt or Valley Park when you removed, to replace the 9 trees you removed from our area. So I just want to go down with the record saying I approve support the tree removal. I would really appreciate something to be replaced.
Before you go, did we get your name?
Sure, it's Anna Frankel.
Thank you, Anna.
You're welcome. Thank you. Bye.
All right, thank you, Anna. We do have another hand raised here, I believe Ruby Fiorita. So give me 1 second, Ruby, while I adjust. Okay, Ruby, I believe you can hit the unmute button.
I did. Can you hear me?
Yes, so whenever you're ready, Ruby.
So my husband are in different parts of the house, so that's why we weren't talking together. But I also want to add that in 2016, the tree that was removed that Lucho referenced, I witnessed one of our other neighbors around the corner from us in the cul-de-sac was calling out for help. And she had tripped on the sidewalk while it was dusk and she was walking her dog, and the sidewalk was raised quite a bit. And she had suffered a head injury. And so she also had a couple of cracked ribs. And, it was terrible watching her, but, it was also quite alarming to us because, we wrote to the city and we said, well, those trees are causing the sidewalks to raise up. And, we don't know, there was a concern about if there was going to be a lawsuit because of the sidewalk raising. And so I just wanted to raise that issue up, is that, if people trip on these sidewalks, there's a worry about liability as well. So that's another reason that I would like to support the removal of the trees. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruby.
Okay, let's see. So if anyone else on the Zoom or on the phone would like to make a public comment on this item, feel free to press the raise hand button. Again, that can be, if you go down on mouse over to the bottom of the Zoom screen, you can see a raise hand there. And if you're on the phone, you can press *9. Once again, if anyone would like to make a public comments, please press the raise hand button or press *9 if you are on the phone. Currently, I do not see any additional raised hands at the moment.
Or phones.
Oh, phones, yes.
I'll just pause for a few more seconds. And I will now close public comment on this item, which brings to our deliberations. I don't know if anyone has any additional burning questions or a desire to start us off with their thoughts and preferences on how we proceed. I think I saw Commissioner Dunbavin's virtual hand first. You're all pretty quick on the draw there.
Now that I know how to do it, yes, I don't know how we solved the problem of replacing the trees, but what I saw out there today is, for lack of a better word, a dangerous sidewalk to walk on because of the uplifting of the sidewalk. And so if and when you need a motion to remove the trees that are there now, I'm certainly willing to make one.
Thank you. Anyone else? Commissioner Giancolli, there you go.
Thank you. It's clear that these trees are causing damage to the sidewalk and are creating a safety hazard as well as a nuisance. I mean, there seems to me that they're creating more than a nuisance. There could be some liability problems here. So it's clear that they're not the right trees for this area. With the sidewalks the way that they are and the way that the trees grow. I'm very concerned about, I think they need to be mitigated, they need to be probably removed, but removing 9 trees in a small area will have quite a great impact on the beautification of that neighborhood. And I would support replacing those trees with trees that do not make a nuisance for the most part, where there are tree planters, and that looks like that's at least 8 of the locations where the trees currently are, where we could put 8 of the 18 trees from the city's approved list that will not be causing these kinds of problems in the future, to retain some of the neighborhood beautification. Otherwise, and also to be purposeful for shading, et cetera, and like that. To me, it seems silly to be putting all the 18 trees in parks where people are already going to see that those are already supposed to be nice. We're just adding more nice to the nice versus taking away the nice and not replacing it somehow. So I would not support removing these trees and not replacing any of them along this corridor of Hermosa Beach. I would support replacing at least 8 of them with trees that would be appropriate for the area.
Thank you for stating your position. Who would like to go next? Anyone?
Well, Scott's got his hand up.
Oh, there you are. Commissioner Hayes.
I agree.
Hand in your sunset threw me off there. Your sunset background.
I'll get a different background next time. I mostly agree with Commissioner Giancoli. I think that if you take all of these trees out of the neighborhood, it will drastically change the character of the neighborhood forever, essentially. I would like for us to take every effort to replace the trees with whatever we can. If it ends up being a smaller tree, it's a smaller tree. I mean, obviously it's going to need to grow, but I just really feel that the neighborhood needs it. I think it was Mr. Peterson, commented that, yeah, great, you take a bunch of trees and you plant them far away from the neighborhood. That doesn't do anything for the neighborhood. I would even like to see if, I don't know that you're going to be able to do all 9, but maybe the others can go, if not on these exact streets, but somewhere close by. I don't know if there's need in parkways nearby. I think that it would be better. And I think the intent when this was originally put in the tree ordinance was to do 2 for 1 nearby, not just to infill somewhere else in the city. Another comment, and this is more, we should make an effort. I know that when we did the bathrooms, they did alternates to expand the scope if needed. I think that this would have been a good opportunity to do that, to have some additional scope included in the bid, so that when if the bids come in low, you automatically know what the next issue is, and it's not you've got competitive bid pricing and not change order pricing for that. So just a recommendation going forward. I think that's all I've got for now. Thank you.
Commissioner Britton.
Yes, I'm pretty much concur with what everyone says. I'm just surprised that this has happened this long and no one else has gotten hurt. And I am also supportive of somehow replacing trees in the neighborhood, whether they be the same spot or somewhere near. My only concern is the trees we're replacing. Are we going to have a root issue like these trees created? We've heard 2 people, one previously and one here, that have had sewer problems and gas leak problems and so forth. I just want to make sure that the new trees don't create the same problem. But thinking forward, we definitely need to move forward with ADA considerations throughout the city. And this just seems like a prime neighborhood and prime project to deal with it now. I understand that, cutting the roots, we could save the trees, but realistically, I think I would agree with the rest of the commissioners to remove them and replace them with something that will not damage, the root system will not damage the infrastructure.
Thank you. So I think we're starting to form a bit of a consensus, save certain details that may need to be hashed out. We seem to be going in a direction of removing the trees and attempting to adhere to the ADA standards no matter what we do, and to strive to replace at least some of the trees on site. So I think what it will come down to is perhaps what type of criteria might we need to specify for replacing the trees, unless we just wanted to leave something open-ended and say try to put in as many as possible. But for example, consideration of the existing sidewalk width, or do we leave it in terms of, I'm looking for some ideas on how we can specify it. I'll leave it at that. If there's any ideas, Commissioner Giancoli.
my kind of comment on this is, as far as I understand, the trees that are on the approved tree list that are approved for various zones in the city have already been vetted for their viability and in terms of not causing damage to the sidewalk and not that kind of overgrowth. So there, I understand that anything that's designated for that zone is not going to do that. So that's why a tree list has been made, because these trees that are on this list aren't producing the kind of damage that back when we didn't know that these types of trees would have overgrowth and damage sewer lines and the sidewalk, et cetera. That challenge has been mitigated with the tree list.
So how does that?
Joe nodding his head. Yes, that's so. Can you verify that, Lucho?
Well, and I asked a question of Lucho earlier about might we be back in the same situation? And those two things are interrelated, I believe.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Giancolli. That was an actually really good question. I would have to agree with you in the sense that those were already considered for not a damaging tree and not being an invasive type. The only thing that's, and by the way, that happened prior to my time, so I don't know what process directly was considered. However, it makes sense. Now, the thing that I want to mention is that many of those, possibly including the ones we selected now, were for quite possibly a larger tree planting area. So we will have to reconsider the trees for this location. And by looking at the list, what requires the least space, and then we can move on with that. And also I imagine that we are looking into, if we plant trees, we are looking for all of them to be matching trees, so they have a theme per se.
The first part of what you said, I totally agree with. I don't know that they have to be matching. I think that's a personal preference. You know, sometimes it's nice to have different things, to have a variety. So I don't know that needs to be a criteria, but it sounds like Chairperson Grayson that the staff is already well equipped to make those decisions about the size of the tree and what trees will not cause a hazard or cause any kind of nuisance, as long as we don't use personal preference to, or we don't have any bias in choosing them, because and if we could even poll the neighborhood, I don't know if that's even possible, if they have any preferences. But in either case, I feel strongly that we need to replace those trees with appropriate ones.
So just to be clear on my position is, when we replace the trees, I still want us to minimize the likelihood of a recurrence of the damage over some time, and go ahead and address the ADA, that is, comply with the pinch points as well. And I don't know if we explicitly acknowledged a common goal for that. Okay, so I just wanted to get that out there. And that was one of the reasons then I started thinking about possible criteria for where trees wouldn't go, because if you address the ADA portion of it, now you're dealing with a size constraint, and that gives you something objective rather than subjective that you can use it to apply as a standard. Another thought I had on that is, and just let me say, I'm not necessarily pushing for all 9 trees even, because looking at it from Commissioner Dunbabin's point of view, I still am concerned about the recurring risk nonetheless. And so by doing maybe half as many or 2/3 as many, that's a way to kind of hedge our bets against the risk of recurring problems and history repeating itself. So the thing is, it still seems like there may be some discretion on staff to actually figure out. So I guess I would ask staff, do you think that some sidewalk width, I'm sorry, I had one more thing I wanted to suggest. I'll just throw it out there. Some of the residents, and I know that people can move away and come and go and all that, but realizing that in some sense, you know, when we did the tree ordinance, I came to realize that this is kind of a partnership between the city and the residents. And one criterion we might be able to apply is how the existing residents at those locations feel about wanting to continue to take on the responsibility and sense of ownership over maintaining a tree. So that was something we could explore. Commissioner Britton.
Yeah, I think we're overthinking it. I kind of like the simplicity of what we have, and I feel the staff has done a very thorough job of what they needed to do. And I think the issue right now is, are we going to remove the trees and replace them and do the sidewalks? And I really think we need to trust the discretion of the staff, that they've already verified these trees will not damage the infrastructure. And as they go and deal with the sidewalk, deal with replacing trees, I think what happens is they do that may be some discretion on how they work with the network and how many the neighbors and how many trees they put in. I think our role here is just to say we are agreeing that these trees will be removed so the sidewalks can be repaired, and that there will be replacement trees that do not damage infrastructure. And I think the rest of it is a city decision. I think we need to trust their discretion on that.
What about the ADA clearance aspect?
That's what the idea of replacing the sidewalk and removing the trees are. I mean, that's the whole point of all this.
Well, there's a damage aspect to the nuisance, and then there's a accessibility aspect to the nuisance.
That's why we're replacing the sidewalks and removing the trees. So that's all part of the project. To me, that's already understood.
Okay, that's fine. Just wanted to be clear on that. And I like what I'm hearing from you, so thank you. So I'm happy to go in a direction that leaves that discretion to staff, as Commissioner Britton has suggested. That's fine, and they've heard what we've had to say. So I don't know if Commissioner Hayes or Dunbabin was first. Commissioner Dunbabin?
I'll let Commissioner Hayes go first this time.
So all I was going to add was that there might be locations where it might not be possible to have the tree and the ADA access, and we should somehow acknowledge that, where you know, maybe staff is directed to replace the trees wherever a tree well and ADA access can both be maintained, and if not, then it's just going to get paved over and the trees will go elsewhere.
I like it. I see Commissioner Dunbabin shaking her head in agreement. I'm seeing nodding heads. I think we're getting close to a motion here.
Yeah.
Who would like to make the motion?
Well, Janice still has her hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You want to take your hand? You want to take your little hand down, Janice? Oh, there you go.
Yeah. I think Kathy's ready to make the motion.
Yeah, I certainly don't mind making the motion. Is to remove the trees that are there, because I don't know if we need a reason, but basically because of safety. And if they can be replaced and not become a nuisance at some point in time, and also that we have ADA space included.
Would it be possible to split the motion into two? one would be removing the trees and then the other we can address replacing them.
Fine, yes.
I'm okay with that.
Yep, and I'll make the motion to remove the trees.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Britton. Roll call, please.
Yes. So the motion is to the approval of removing the 9 trees on 21st and Hillcrest. Commissioner Dunbabin, how do you vote?
Yeah.
Commissioner Hayes, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner John Coley, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Britton, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Chairperson Grethen, how do you vote?
Aye.
So motion passes. So all 9 trees are approved for removal.
Commissioner Hayes, would you like to take a crack at the replacement motion?
I'll give it a shot. I move that the removed trees are replaced at the existing locations wherever it is possible to maintain ADA access and there's enough room for a planter for the tree. The trees will be recommended by staff such that trees are selected that should not have similar root intrusion problems in the future.
That's a mouthful.
And the other replacement trees would be as at other locations as determined by staff.
That's what I was going to add.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Works for me.
Within the neighborhood.
That's a friendly amendment.
How about within the neighborhood where possible?
Within the neighborhood where possible, with the where possible added.
Or where
I'm fine with that.
Can you, Andrew, can you repeat it?
Yes. So from my understanding, the motion for the 9 trees that are approved to be removed, they will be replaced with 18 trees. The replacement will be along 21st Street and Hillcrest in the same area.
And 24th.
And 24th, where both a tree row and ADA access can be achieved. The remaining replacement trees are to be planted in the neighborhood where possible. And if there are any remaining trees left to be planted, will be planted in other locations as determined by staff. And trees that are to be planted will be species recommended by staff where we will not be facing root issues in the future, damaging utilities or causing sidewalk lifting.
Great. Do I have a, so okay, so I think we need a second still.
Yes.
I'll second it.
Commissioner Dunbabin seconds. We're ready for the roll call then.
All right. Commissioner Britton, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Hayes, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner John Coley, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Dunbabin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Chairperson Grethen, how do you vote?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Excuse me. And when it was my turn, there was one thing I wanted to call out. It wouldn't affect the deliberations. I just wanted to, I had acknowledged that this was a staff initiated report. And I felt that the staff report was not just comprehensive, but it was objective in the sense that the arborist report contained information indicating that some of these trees are still pretty healthy. And I want to thank staff for providing us objective information, even though it may have not been fully supportive of their recommendation. So thank you for that. Okay. And thank you to my colleagues for that deliberation and collaboration. So now that's it for items for consideration. That will bring us to item 9, commissioners' reports. These tend to be the public works related types of reports, if anyone has anything. And Commissioner Hayes.
No, Kathy beat me to it and she's going to report the same thing that I was. So.
Oh.
You know what? I'm gonna
Go ahead, Commissioner. Dunbevan.
Let me, I'm gonna let Commissioner Hayes give his report because actually they are asking us to, just a second, to, it's about the Clark building and we made some decisions.
Excuse me, this is the subcommittee, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
And I should have stressed that this is the perfect place for subcommittees. So, sorry for the interruption.
Anyway, so both of us were at that meeting. They are going to have another meeting on Monday about lighting and the ceiling, and I'm not going to be able to attend, but Scott will be able to. So I'm going to let him report on the Clark building.
So we had a meeting at the Clark building, I think it was last month, with our subcommittee as well as the Parks and Rec subcommittee and many members from staff. We reviewed the design. I've made several comments in advance of the meeting. Just with my background, my comments tend to be more nuts and bolts and less and bidding and less design related. There are a few design issues that are outstanding, and we're going to meet next week on Monday to go over some of those issues. But it was nice for there to be some progress.
Okay. And just out of curiosity, who who are some of the key staff members that attend those meetings?
Lucho, Jonathan Pascal,
Kelly Orta was there.
Kelly Orta, right?
Okay.
And then one or two members of her staff as well.
And Cambria from her staff. Yeah.
Great. And I'm glad to see there's an opportunity for collaboration with between Public Works and the Parks and Recreation. So that's a good thing, and I wish you well on that collaboration. Anything else in terms of this or other reports? And I'm seeing none. So we can move on to the monthly reports. Item 10A is the monthly activity reports, and we'll see whether any, on this one, we usually just ask if the commissioners have any comments or questions about the activity reports, this being one of the pages. These are the things largely involving, well, does anybody have any comments? Okay. I was able to take a little bit of time to look at it. I wanted to acknowledge that the June report that we got is the fiscal year end report. And so it was a good opportunity to look at a little closer at some of the metrics there. And I looked at the, on one of the pages, it shows for all of the service requests, the mini service requests that the maintenance staff receives. And it's broken down in terms of how many completed and how many in progress and how many total. And it looks like we got a total of 2,830 requests, which is about 236 per month. That's a big number. And the number completed, out of that 236 per month, it looks like we average completing about 223. So the staff seems to be doing a heck of a job as they strive to keep up at working things off as new things come in, and working to maintain a high service rate. I want to express my thanks and that I'm impressed, and give a shout out to our Public Works Superintendent, John Cordova, and his team for responding to the many requests that come from a variety of sources, including the public or through staff or however they come. So just wanted a chance for a shout out there, and thank you much. And that's all I have on activity reports. Okay, and then that will bring us to item 10B, which is the CIP status with verbal updates. And Interim Director Crespi will have the lead for this. I'll just remind folks of the way that we conduct this is Director Crespi will highlight whatever item she chooses to. And then as we go through them one by one, the commissioners can express questions or comments on those. And then after Director Crespi is done, if another commissioner wants to initiate some other topics that weren't covered, and we'll go till we exhaust everything. So please start us off, Director Crespi.
Thank you, Chairperson Grayson. I'm actually going to ask Lucho if he can take the lead on this. He did the update on the spreadsheet, so he's more familiar with some of the changes that took place on the blue items this month.
Thank you, Director. I'm happy to do it. Yes, you can see on our new status, we added the new projects for the upcoming year, whatever was approved in the last budget. And they are indicated on our status report with the, they say new next to the title name, the name of the project. That's what you can see here. Now I'm gonna update you as chairperson indicated on the ones that had the most movement or have hit a milestone in recent days or last month. We have several that moved into construction. The first one, as you know now, we are talking today about street improvements 186 and 190, and that's the one that is tied to this tree item. I'm highlighting this one because our annual street improvements was delayed a little bit for just design reasons, but now we finally got it out to bid, got a really good bid, and it's gonna begin construction towards the end of this month, or let me rephrase that, early August. Is when we're gonna be paving throughout the city at a few locations, including the area we talked about just previously. We have CIP 192, annual striping improvements. That is ready to go into construction as well. We are with the project striping areas that our maintenance didn't get to because striping is throughout the city. This is, by the way, pavement striping. And throughout the city, we need to be maintaining striping. So to catch up some, we made a program that is called annual striping improvements. This particular year, we are including work at the parking structure on 14th Street and Hermosa Avenue, as well as on parking lot A next to Pier Plaza. And those striping improvements there include ADA striping for the accessible parking spots. On the same fashion, the accessible parking stalls are also getting restriped at the community center on Pier Avenue and PCH on the parking lot there. And there's one more location that oh, and City Hall ADA striping as well at our parking lot, just to make it more accessible. And also it includes a series of crosswalks and stop signs throughout the city.
Lucho, somehow I had accidentally muted myself. I had a question on the striping improvements.
Yes, please go ahead.
Were you talking about the new one? Because didn't we have one that we're finishing up from last year and then a new one for this year? And so were you, which one were you talking about?
Thank you, Chairperson. Yes, the one I'm speaking of is CIP 192.
Okay.
That one is the previous year one, but it's finally in construction. We are starting in August as well to this striping.
Yeah, I got it now. Thanks. That was my own confusion. Sorry.
No, not a problem. And then to follow up with your question, yes, we added a new annual striping improvement project 194, CIP 194. And that one is even more money than the previous year. We have to go through the city and select the new locations to stripe. And I would say in around 6 months, we should be restriping some new locations with that project. The beauty of this, and I'm going to take a minute to talk about it, is that these are annual projects that the city implemented. So every year we should be seeing some additional striping until we catch up throughout the city. But I imagine they're going to be present for a long, long time because, as I said, striping is an ongoing need. Then we do have also a new project that is of interest to all of us, CIP 603 South Park slope and irrigation repairs. It's a new project that we are finalizing the plans, and we're going to be moving into bidding in the near future, and are going to start a landscaping and irrigation repair project at South Park to bring it back to life, to plant on the slopes and such. And
so Lucho, I'll comment on that one. I just wanted to acknowledge, so this is not accounting for the quick near-term project just to get the park back operational. This is actually heading into the more permanent, longer-term follow-on part, right?
Thank you, Chairperson Grethen. Absolutely. We did have the let's open up the park project and spend some money there stabilizing the slopes so we could have the park open for summer. But now this is the permanent one that will actually replace all the irrigation. This is only phase one. It's a big park, so we divided it in 2 phases. Phase one covers the slopes and the play area, the playground area. And it's going to have fully new irrigation pipes and all that, which is what failed previously, as well as planting. And the planting is more native flowers. They're called evergreen. So they won't dry up during summer, but they are water sensitive, not a lot of use of water. And and flowering as well. So it should be an interesting park at the end of our project. I don't have the full timeline just yet for you because we are finalizing the plans. But
I appreciate how deep you've already gotten into the progress on this phase one. And I also appreciate you making it clear that then there's a phase two. So there's sort of the phase zero, if you will, phase one and phase two. Thanks.
Thank you. Then we have here in front of my eyes, there's another citywide ADA improvement projects, CIP 604. We, of course, haven't kicked it off yet because it just got approved on our recent budget adoption. But we are going to be looking of where else to do some ADA immediate needed improvements, and we will move on and forward with that one. And it's pending staff availability. So as soon as somebody is free, we will kick that off. I'm moving down to CIP 669, and at our last council meeting, City Council awarded the construction contract for City Park restrooms and renovation, construction and renovation. We are going to be constructing park restrooms at South Park, at Clark Field, at For Lots of Fun, and at Seaview Park. And actually very excited about the project that was on the books for a long time, and it's a reality. We are going to be kicking this construction off after summer, once the parks have less use, and it's the perfect timing to break ground. We are going to try to maintain as much of the parks open during construction, and we will be providing to the parks that remain open, and it's hopefully all of them, we are going to be providing porta potties of some sort of alternate restroom. South Park, besides getting a new set of restrooms, we're also remodeling the old one by the school building, which it's in immediate need as well. So when we work on that is where we're going to provide porta potties for the park.
And Lucho, you mean at South Park, the red brick building there?
South Park, sorry, Chairperson.
Just helping out, hope you don't mind.
No, absolutely. Thank you so much. I do appreciate that. We're going to have a project at parking structure lot C. This is another example of how we've been moving projects from planning phase into the design phase. We did a study last fiscal year for parking structure lot C to assess the structural items of the structure. We got the report, and now we requested some money to move forward and start doing a project at parking structure lot C. That is a big revenue structure at the city, and therefore it's important. It will be an important project.
Do we know what the anticipated scope of work is for the repairs?
We are facing it. because there were a long list of improvements. One is the decks, basically, because there's some there is some rebar damage, and we are going to basically protect it. It's a protection on our investment, if you will. So we are going to weatherproof the surfaces, so as to protect the decks from damage from the weather, from rain, being that this is an open structure and that is adjacent to the ocean. It suffers a lot with the weather there, and we want to basically protect it. But we don't have a full scope of work other than that knowledge that that's what we want to do at this point.
Okay, thanks.
Absolutely. And then I think those are the highlights of our CIP update. If you have any questions, we will be happy to try to answer them.
Any commissioner questions on those or any other items not discussed that a commissioner would like to hear about? I've got a couple. So what I tend to do is compare the reports 2 months apart with the one we got at our last meeting. And I saw a couple items that are not in blue, which I understand, but I noticed progress and I wanted to give you a chance I wanted to acknowledge the progress. So one of them is on page 1 at the bottom, 419, the storm drain pipe screens appears to now be in closeout.
419, you said. Yes.
Storm drain pipe screens is made it to closeout phase.
Very good point. Thank you for that question. Yes, this was a project that is unnoticeable because the contractor is going around the city doing one by one insert in our catch basins, storm drain inlets, and it's a trash capturing device, right, to prevent the trash from entering the ocean, basically. It was a very successful project. We are in closeout, which means we completed the 100+ inlets that we were doing on this phase. And closeout means now we do the notice of completion, file it with the county, close the books, and we are done.
And then another one, the main point is just to give you credit for progress, was on the downtown lighting improvements. It looks like you've proceeded from preliminary design into final design. So I just want to acknowledge that as well on 608. So
yeah, thank you very much for that.
Kudos, like to call that out where possible.
Yeah.
Let me see if I have anything else.
By the way, chairperson and commissioners, the next annual sewer improvements project is also going to be going to council for bidding. And Andrew, if you remind me the number, that is 421.
Yeah, 421.
421. CIP 421 is going to first meeting in August. We are going to present the bids to council for award of phase 1. Phase 1 is a non-intrusive, non-destructive phase. it basically includes lining of the sewer pipes. So we're not going to see the streets open or anything like that, only minimally. Phase 2, we are completing design, and that will follow probably in 6 months or so. But for now, that's an exciting progress update, because sewer is one of our main concerns. We were trying to fix our sewage system that was in poor shape, and this will complete our 3rd sewer project, if I'm not mistaken. So that's good news for us looking into infrastructure.
Have you received the bids already for that, or are preparing for it? How are the bids coming in compared to budget?
Yes, we did receive bids. I believe we received 4 or 5 of them, and they came in lower than our engineer's estimate. So they were quite good bids, yes. And we, as Mitchell mentioned, will be going to council in August to award that contract.
Andrew is our project manager for the sewer projects. So,
okay.
Doing a great job, by the way. I'll say here in front of you, he gets a bravo for sure for doing such good work in that.
And then the only other thing I noticed on the parking lot improvements, and I see Doug lurking here. He doesn't necessarily have to chime in, but the council did do what they need to do to formally accept the grant funds for that. So that's a good thing. I took the time to look at the grant application that was attached, and I noticed that there is mention of there being some type of a solar component to that project. And Doug can keep us updated on the details as progress is made there. I had an email exchange with him on that. So,
yes.
But it was unclear whether we were just going to have the mechanical provisions, at least to me, or if we were actually going to go ahead and have the electrical and actually start implementing it. And it looks like we're more likely to actually have the solar power. So I was interested in that.
Yes, and there's some cases, because we try to implement our solar power at all of our projects where it is feasible. For example, our tree park, I'm sorry, our park restrooms projects, all those are solar, right? So we try to implement it wherever possible. In the case of parking lot D, there was nothing to run that the solar would make a lot of sense, but we're still looking at the final design, Chairperson. We are looking into, are we finalizing the plans? That's the best answer I can give you. And we're meeting, as a matter of fact, in the next couple of weeks with the designer, finalize once for all the plans, and then see where we land with the funding that we have and what else we need. And I'm pretty sure we're going to be in front of you at some point, giving you a good update for that.
Thank you. We'll look forward to that.
Yes.
Last call for anything else on the CIP status. Commissioner Hayes.
I just have, it's a more general question. Just because I know in the construction industry right now, prices are going through the roof. And I know that one of the council members gave Public Works a little bit of grief, is probably the most polite word, about making sure that we have budgets and that we can predict the pricing. And I know that's near impossible to do. That's in my day job. That's what I do, and so I understand the problems. But my question is, what are we doing? How often are we looking at these project budgets and updating them to numbers that are more realistic?
Really good question, and thank you for bringing it up, actually, because it is something in design that is one of the main items we look at. We look at three things: plans, specifications, and cost estimates. At the beginning of a project, we have the most educated, best possible cost for a project, right? And that's what we request as a budget, at least to get us through the first part of the project. So, and phase of the project, maybe the studies phase, which is phase one on this form that you have for CIP status. Depending on what comes out of there, as it is the case of the park construction project that I was highlighting not long ago, because of the study and the cost estimates that study provided, we were able to go to council and say, we need this much funding for design. And at the same time, because it was a project we want to move fast on, because the design is not very complicated, by the way, we asked for more money in order to get us ready for construction. Now, it depends on the final design plans when we do an engineering analysis and we try to come up with the best prices or the best design for the best cost possible. And at that time, we have a new cost estimate prepared. At that time, we will know, okay, council, we will need more funding, or this is sufficient, and so forth. That's in a fast moving project. In some longer moving projects, it's where the industry changes so much that some items are hard to get a hold of, or they have skyrocketed in price that make us look into this more often, into cost estimating. But we are from now on sharpening our pencils, and at least twice a year we have the opportunity to go to council to refine our budget requests at mid-year and at the new year budgets. So as a minimum at those two times, but during the project life, at several check-in spots, we do look into the budgets and into the cost estimates, of course, to do that. I would like to add one more thing that I think is important for our understanding of cost estimates and budgets, is that as you are aware, in recent times only, we started our on-call program to have consultants on call, designers, construction management, inspection services, and other specialties. That is something that we are also including in our budgeting now, the request for those services that in the past they weren't necessarily included into our budgets, right? We just said, hey, we need this money for design and construction, but there's all these incidentals, if you would, to the project, and now we're including all of these, all the costs, including maintenance for the future, right? So that was included in this restroom project, as an example. So we're going to be always improving, and that's the idea of a department, always looking for how do we make it better for the next project, how do we implement the lessons learned. So and we are on the way there every day better. So thank you for that question.
I deal with it every day. I feel your pain.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner Hayes, for that very important question, and many thanks, Lucho, for taking the time to go into it and illuminate it for us. And when we think about, possibly performing some updates more regularly and communicating them, one subtlety I'd point out is the difference between updating the estimate and updating the budget. So while sometimes we go ahead and allocate the full funding for the cost of completion ahead of time, there are instances where we may not. And that's where, for example, you might be able to communicate that through updates in the 5-year plan, where it's okay to have differences between the estimate to complete and the current budget, but then you can show the difference left to add in future years to make up the difference.
Yeah.
So thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Anything else? I think we're done with that one, and we're ready to move on to director's verbal updates. This is if Director Crespi has anything else to share beyond the CIP and the activity reports.
Yes, thanks, Chairperson Grayson. I do have one thing that I would like to share with the commission, and that's an update on the Public Works Director recruitment. I forget which one of the commissioners had asked for a quick update, and thanks for that reminder. So the city did launch a national open-wide recruitment for the Public Works Director position in late May. With Marnell's retirement. The position was listed as open until filled at that time so that we could allow all qualified applicants to continue to apply. So at this time, we've received over 25 applicants, and right now we're scheduled to have first round of interviews next week. So the first round will be a panel interview of the most highly qualified candidates. And then the panel will refer those candidates to the city manager for further consideration. The city manager plans to include department directors and the Public Works Department in different stages of the selection process. So hopefully we'll find the perfect person in the list of candidates that we already have. But it'll remain open until filled until we find that individual. And that's the update on that item.
Very good. So we can move on to item 12, commissioner items, also known as other matters. And this is back to public works type things. Any other issues or questions or things the commissioners would like to bring up? And I'm seeing none. We'll move on to 13, Commissioner.
I just have a real quick one. Do we have an update on that saltwater intrusion project? I know it's not our public works, it's county, but do we have an update on that?
I know Doug has been working with LA County, and I have, but not as closely. As far as I'm aware, they're still proceeding ahead with the project. If I recall correctly from an email, the drilling is all done, so you shouldn't be seeing any of the heavy equipment anymore. I think they're now just installing the wells, the new wells inside. They did give us an updated schedule, but the work is, I believe, still continuing through the summer and most likely the fall. So
Okay.
I think LA County is just still kind of just chugging along there on schedule, but still chugging along.
Thank you.
Commissioner Dunbavin. Mute. You're muted. Getting late.
Is the cable project right now that is happening on 25th Street. And I realize that it has nothing to do with Hermosa Beach except for some money that will be coming into Hermosa Beach. But any projection as far as when that's going to be
Yeah, I believe I have to check with our inspector. He's been working with the cable pulling crew, but I believe they're still pulling cable. From the discussion, they should be wrapping up this week. If they don't hit any troubles or delays. But yeah, they'll also continue work this week as well on that.
Thank you.
All right. Now we can go ahead to 13 commissioner announcements. If there's anything else, generally of a non-public works nature. Commissioner Dunbavin, is your hand still up or is this for a new one?
It is. It's just for the announcements. I think at our last meeting, the election hadn't been certified, and I know it's been 2 months ago, but I'd like to congratulate, as I'm sure all of us would like to congratulate Ray Jackson, our newest city council member. And the other thing is that Leadership Hermosa had a project in Valley Park where they did some ADA modifications, which are great, and in the picnic and barbecue area. So it's really made the picnic area a very easy area for those people with ADA problems to participate in barbecues and picnic tables, and it's been well used. That's it.
All right. Thank you, Leadership Hermosa, for your contribution to our infrastructure.
Yes.
Any other announcements? Okay, that will bring us to item 14, which is adjournment to our next meeting in September. We are adjourned. Good night, and thank you for your participation.
Have a good night.
Bye, everyone.
Night.
Right.